Today on In the House, I talk with Trent Depth of Timber Builders. We talk about all things mass timber and the expected growth of the mass timber market over the next several years. We discuss the numerous roles that timber builders take on, from finding an architect or engineer to development to bidding and install. They can do it all. We talk through some of the benefits of building with mass timber, as well as what makes their team different from traditional frame crews. I hope you like this episode. Thanks for listening. Well, today on In the House, we have Trent Depth of Timber Builders. Trent, how's it going today?
It's going well.
I'm thankful you were able to make it on.
We beat the rain.
Yeah, we did. We sure did beat the rain.
I'm telling you.
Well, I wanted to, before we get into, what it is you're working on and some of the things that y'all do, I kind of wanted to understand, who you are and what your background is.
So many different things. Where do I start? I'm from Iowa.
Yeah.
I grew up in Iowa, so, people say, "Oh, you're a Texan now." No, I was born and raised in Iowa. I'll be here for probably the rest of my life, but I'm an Iowan.
Nice.
So Texas is great, and I love it here. My kids are here. My wife's here. So
perfect. Yeah. Welcome. I love it.
Yep. But yeah, the construction started back when I was a little kid, and my parents did an addition and watched a guy hand frame like the whole addition. One guy. Yeah. And that was pretty cool. So I've kind of always liked construction and carpentry since then.
That seems to be like a common theme, I think, among builders, or especially among builders, is like, you ask how they got interested in construction, and it was always, my dad built on they built my house or built on a guest house or something like that. Seems very common, and especially when you're a kid.
That's one of the reasons we, there's a great, I don't know if you want me to mention anybody else's podcast, but
go for it.
There's a great guy called The Honest Carpenter, and he talks about, getting people interested in the trades. And one of his big premises is, he doesn't do anything with high schools, and I don't really do much with high schools. The key is to get these kids interested when they can still get interested. By the time they get to high school, they've already figured out at least sort of what they like. Mm-hmm. So I like to go to elementary schools, middle schools, talk to kids about the trades, let them hold a hammer. Some kids have never held a hammer. Some kids have never seen a skill saw.
That's shocking.
And so, we really like, I really like reading books to, little kids and getting them excited about construction. Cool. And, for the longest time, they didn't have any cartoons on the air anymore. They didn't have Handy Manny or Bob the Builder.
Right.
Finally they're, I have a 4-year-old, and one of her favorite shows is Rebel and Crew.
Yeah.
Rebel and Friends.
Yeah, Rebel and Crew. I got a 5-year-old.
It's a Paw Patrol spinoff.
Yeah, we're there. Yeah.
And then there's the other one's the Disney one, the Puppy Pals.
Puppy Dog Pals.
Puppy Dog Pals. They have one too.
So, really? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
well,
they
hadn't
have
discovered
one
that one yet, so I'm glad.
They have a spinoff too. Yeah.
Dang.
So I'm a big firm believer of trades in the schools, and not everybody. College isn't for everybody.
Agreed.
The scariest statistic that I know right now is that the Department of Labor did a study, and they said that 20% of all carpenters will age out in the next 5 years. 20%. That's critical.
And then what's the percentage coming up to replace them?
No,
it's minimal.
Non-existent. It doesn't get replaced. The average age of trades, people in the trades, it increases every year incrementally. That means that there's more people getting out than there are coming in. Yeah. There's more older people than there are younger people coming in.
But I'm right there with you. I think trying to introduce it, to elementary age that's the time to do it. I think you're right. I think you're spot on with that. Because it's still kind of, you get still got the kid in
They
them,
can still get excited about it.
Yeah,
you know?
they get the creativity.
I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. They don't have all the baggage,
right?
So getting them excited about that early on, that's key. That's the key thing. So that's what I try and tell every one of my builder friends. Hey, if you get a chance, if you have a kid in elementary school, if you have a friend's kid who's in elementary school, there's a book called Good Night Construction Site.
I love that book. Yeah, we have it.
And I know my friend, or he's not my friend, the guy that I know who has that the Honest Carpenter. We've chatted a couple times, but he's working on a book too.
That's super cool.
So, anything to get the kids. There's a lady, I'm trying to think of the company she worked for. She's written a couple of construction children's books that are pretty neat. I'll forward it to you. Put it in
please
the
do.
notes.
That'd be awesome. I've toyed with the idea of trying to do my own because we have that book, Good Night Construction Site.
Yeah,
and we've worn that thing out. That's such a good book.
Well, I used ChatGPT and I wrote the four little bears, or no, the four little pigs. Four little pigs. Yeah, where it was straw, it was wood, it was brick, and mass timber.
Yeah.
So,
that's clever.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. My daughter likes that one.
Yeah.
So she doesn't like it as good as the princess story that we wrote with her as the main character. But
that's awesome. Well, so speaking of mass timber, let's get into that. Tell me a little bit about Timber Builders, and I mean you're the founder, correct?
I'm one of them.
Okay.
So I used to have my own company.
Okay.
And with like I said, I've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I've always had some construction, with the businesses that I've owned, and after the pandemic, my wife and I owned a couple of salons, and we closed those, and was trying to figure out what we're going to do next. And I was building our house at the time. It was just me and another guy built our house, and she's like, "You should do this." So I started a company, and it quickly went towards mass timber. Started as a post frame company,
okay,
kind of like the guy from R&R Buildings, Kyle.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
He
with
was
him.
my inspiration.
That's cool.
If you're listening, Kyle, thank you. But I started down the path of mass timber and started making connections, and we went to the mass timber conference a couple times, and we started doing some commercial builds, and then I got put in touch with the folks at Builder Holdings, and originally I thought we would be, doing some installs for their GC. Mm-hmm. And, over the course of a few weeks, that conversation started to evolve, and I started to get an idea of what they were wanting to do, and they started getting an idea of what I wanted to do. So it made sense for all of us that I just shut down my company and then come to work for them. And so Darren Smith is the one you'd contacted. Mm-hmm. He and I are kind of like the founders of Timber Builder. We came up with the name. He came up with the logo, and that was just October. So no, yeah,
wow.
And I came over with a pipeline and a bunch of contacts. I mean, that was part of the motivation, to get into mass timber as a brand new company. There's quite a steep point of entry.
Yeah.
You have to. It's not an easy group of people to break into. There's it's not like most other trades.
Yeah. It's
kind of a combination of carpentry and ironwork, and
it's kind of unfamiliar. Like, I don't think a lot of builders, especially in the U.S., are familiar with.
Yeah, we're about 10 years behind the European market.
Yeah,
almost exactly, and we're kind of at the bottom of the hockey stick of the growth curve.
Okay,
but we're about to hit the stick, so it's
a lot of room to grow.
It's doubled in size every year for the last 6 years. So, yeah, it's the fastest growing sector in construction right now.
Mass timber.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be the largest, but it's the fastest growing. I think the statistic, and if I'm wrong, don't crucify me for it. But I believe it was in 2017 or 2018, there were 9 projects in the U.S., and now there's over 2,500 projects or 5,000 projects. I mean, it's something ridiculous. And those are just true mass timber, which people consider true mass timber really a project that involves CLT. But mass timber encompasses a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
NLT, which is nail lam timber. It's glue lam timber. It's, mass ply, which is just a really thick LVL, panels and columns. And so, there's a lot of variations of what could be considered mass timber. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's really taken off. So, we started Timber Builder, and now, we've got 5 houses under contract. We've got, which is also unique for us because we do residential. Most mass timber companies aren't.
Okay.
Most of the big install companies aren't. So we have 5 houses under contract. We've got a couple more in the works. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we're developing with infill lots, especially here in the Austin area. Austin area is just going nuts.
Infill, so like, is this like multifamily units?
Well, it's like a single family lot that might have multiple houses on it.
Okay.
Or multiple lots with multiple houses. So,
Gotcha.
And then everything from small multifamily, large multifamily, and commercial. So we're, we do a little bit of everything. We're right now working on a project with Matt Reisinger. Mm-hmm. That's a prototype, project. It's kind of the gray area in between mass timber and stick framing. It's more mass timber than stick framing. It's really more like a post frame, or like I hate it when he says this, but like a pole barn. So it's like post and beam type of construction and mass timber combination with LVL stuff. What's exciting about that is, and we'll get into that, but it's basically the same cost as stick framing, the way that we've set up the system.
Oh, really?
No kidding. And it replaces it in many respects, and it's a stronger, structure. So, but yeah, we're doing some houses with CLT. We just finished one, with Cross Cabin and Moon Tower.
Yep. I remember that one.
We did again, we do small stuff too. So that was a 700 square foot ADU. We put it up in 2 days.
Wow.
So it actually probably could have been put up in 1 day, but we had, some weather stuff, wind and
right,
whatnot.
Sure.
The cranes don't like that. We had to lift panels up over a house. That was, in the rear of a house.
That's scary.
The folks in Austin love their trees, as do I. But, you have to steer around a lot of that and make sure you don't damage it.
Yeah.
But then we're going to be building a restaurant here in a couple of months in Plano. We're doing a community center outside of Minneapolis here in the late June, July. We have a couple of really big projects that I can't talk about in Houston.
Okay.
Not yet. They're not under contract yet.
Yeah,
so,
not yet.
But yeah, so lots of stuff happening.
What's the biggest struggle, I guess? Because, I mean, I think, like, where do you even source the material? Because as far as I'm aware, there's no manufacturers in the state of Texas that produces cross-laminated timber and CLT type panels. Like,
well,
so where
that's
does that...
That's a gray area. There is.
Okay.
There's a company that produces the industrial mats that are made out of CLT, but they aren't currently making architectural grade CLT. So CLT has been used in the U.S. for industrial matting. So like crane mats, oil rig mats.
Okay.
You know, whenever they need to lay something down on the ground, it's very robust. It's very strong.
Yeah.
But no, I'm hoping that some of the stuff that I've been hearing rumblings about, comes to fruition with the state of Texas. There might be a CLT manufacturer coming to Texas. It makes sense. We have a huge southern yellow pine supply here.
Yeah.
The state wants to see it. The state forestry board people want to see it.
Yeah, I was reading an article just the other day. It was saying that the state of Texas actually like grows 30 to 40% more than it harvests. So like there's a huge supply.
And you have to harvest it.
Yeah. Well, because it gets to the point where that if there's nowhere for this material to be used, then they want to repurpose the land and use it for something else. So
well, not just that, but not every tree is a redwood and a sequoia. Fair. So they have a lifespan.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where that tree starts to die. Mm-hmm. And if the tree dies, then all of that carbon that it's spent the last 40 years sequestering gets released back into the atmosphere. So, I mean, I'm not a big green, I don't know all the statistics about that stuff. But what I do know is the trees have a lifespan, and it's healthy to forest forests. It's healthy to take trees out. Yeah. Clear cutting obviously isn't what you want to see, but
sure.
A lot of this land is planted specific to harvest the trees. Mm-hmm. And these are long-term investments, these properties.
Yeah.
The trees that you plant today aren't even going to be ready in this generation to harvest.
Yeah.
So there's more forest land now than there was in 1970. I think it was in 1970. I have all these facts in a spreadsheet somewhere, and I didn't bring it, but
you don't have it all committed to memory?
No.
Dang, man.
I build the stuff. I leave that to my friends at Woodworks. They're the ones who can spout the
all the stats.
The stats. Yeah. They we should talk about Woodworks if we're talking about mass timber, because are you familiar with Woodworks?
No, I'm not.
So Woodworks is a nonprofit, and it's paid for by grants and sponsors, and what they do is they offer assistance not just for mass timber but for wood in general. So the wood industry is definitely helping fund it, but they offer assistance to general contractors, to architects, to engineers, to developers, really whoever needs it. To give them the resources, the connections, the information. So you asked, where do you source this stuff? You can call Woodworks, and Woodworks will help put you in contact with a list of suppliers that you can contact. Their whole premise is to educate people, to give people resources. And you're right, it's not something that a lot of people have a lot of knowledge about. So, they try to go out there, and it's a big organization. There's currently one regional for the state of Texas, and there's about to be two. Okay. So right now it's Mark Bartlett. He's the one who introduced me to mass timber. And they're a fantastic organization. They put on educational events. If you're an architect or an engineer or a general contractor and you want to have somebody come out and tell your team about mass timber, they'll come out, and they'll you can even get AIA credits and your CEUs.
Yeah.
But yeah, they that's a good organization. So anybody who's listening and wants to find out more about mass timber, their website has free webinars, lots of documentation, case studies. They have a thing called the Wood Innovations Network that shows all of the projects, or at least all the projects that people register in the country on a map. Mm-hmm. So you can pull up a bunch of old projects, get inspired, see what else is going on, get an idea as to what this whole mass timber thing is all about.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like, mass timber is going to explode. Again, I was quoting this article, I think it was the Texas Tribune, saying that globally it was about 850 million, and it's projected to be like $1.5 billion by 2030.
It's crazy.
It's growing for sure, and I think there's even some legislation, or they're trying to change the code to allow for taller buildings.
Oh, it's already there. I mean,
okay.
The 2024 code,
right? Okay,
18 plus stories, and then some municipalities like Milwaukee, they're building I think it's a 30-story.
Wow.
So it's not. I mean, in Perth, they just got approval for a 51-story. So
all out of timber.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
God damn.
Yep. And wood is stronger than steel pound for pound.
Sure.
So, there's some real benefits to building a tall building, because one of the downsides of building a tall building is the weight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hear stories about how buildings sink.
Yep.
And in fact, I was just watching, I love historical documentaries. One of the largest all brick buildings was built in, I forget which city. I think maybe Chicago. Yeah, it was Chicago. And before it was completed, it sunk into the ground 3 feet.
Oh my gosh.
That's before we had geotech reports.
Right.
But, when you build a tall building out of wood, it's significantly lighter, which means you need a lot less foundation. The piers don't need to go as deep. So, there's some economies that you start to hit when you get to certain heights that a steel building or an all steel building or a steel and concrete building or an all concrete building, they just have some inherent limitations for weight that you start, the taller you get, the heavier it gets, and the more difficult it is to support that foundation.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the drawback, I mean, especially with like some of these more modern designs that you see like in residential or even like big commercial projects, like it's hard to achieve some of those slim lines maybe and really small profiles with wood. The members, structural members, I think need to be a little bit beefier to kind of handle those loads. They do. Versus steel you can.
And there's just different ways to get those elegant lines.
Yeah.
There's ways that wood can bend that looks more natural. There's this whole concept called biophilia, and it has to do with when you work and live in a environment made of natural elements like wood.
Okay.
There's a certain effect that it has on the body, a certain effect it has on your mood, and it's a real thing. There's been lots of studies done on it. But even when I have a new crew guy and he's in a commercial build and it's all wood around him.
Yeah.
And these are guys that have been doing they're iron workers or something. It has a different feel when you're on a job site. We did some work on a building here in Austin at 4th and Waller, the T3 project.
Okay.
We drilled a whole bunch of penetrations there, like 400 plus penetrations, like cores.
Okay.
And it's remarkable when you're in the basement and it's all concrete, and then you walk up into the upper parts of the building. I mean, yeah, there's light and everything, but it's wood, and it's not like 2x4s. It's like solid panels of wood. So like a CLT panel can be, 11, 12, 13 inches thick,
right,
by 8 foot wide by 60 foot long.
That's crazy.
Solid wood.
Yeah.
And, and some of the panels are even bigger, and the glue lambs can be just ginormous.
Yeah.
I was just on my way here talking to a friend of mine at Bell Structural out of Minneapolis, and we're doing a project for them coming up in July, and they're making an 80-inch deep glue lamb beam right now.
Wow.
I mean, and it's really cool. When you see the sports stadiums that have the big wooden beams that go across the ceiling, those are always more impressive to me than if it's a big steel girder.
I don't disagree. I think it's awesome. I mean, I've been in plenty of like big churches or ski lodges or just some big commercial building or a hotel with these massive glue lambs that are bent and in a certain design, and it's a wonder.
Well, and it's sustainable, so it's something that we can regrow. This is one of the coolest facts. The build that we're on right now, and it's a very it's easy to calculate. I don't know how to calculate it, but the fiber, so the wood fiber in that build, took less than 5 minutes to grow. So in the forest where it was growing, all of that fiber, not each tree individually, but all of that fiber only took 5 minutes in that forest to grow. So 5 minutes of growth for the forest, the whole total of the forest, would create enough wood for that whole house to be built.
Oh,
it's a big house.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that building in Perth, 23 minutes.
Okay.
23 minutes. Yeah.
Has anybody
51 stories.
Has anyone done the calculation to see how many acres of trees you need to make a 51-story?
No, because they don't. The thing about that is it's deceiving. So how dense is that forest?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, how thick are the trees? You know, what type of yield did they get from those trees? So, you know, when we're talking about wood, we're really talking about, you know, cubic feet or cubic meters of fiber. So, you know, that's generally how they quantify it. You know, so, and it just depends on what type of boards. You know, that's why I really like the mass ply, because it's so efficient with how it uses the wood. I don't know if you've ever seen plywood made. If you haven't, you need to check it out one of these days.
No.
They take a tree and it spins really fast around the biggest razor blade you've ever seen, and it shaves off a continuous veneer until it comes to the heartwood, and then it spits that out. And they're going to still use that.
Right.
They use so Frere's is in Lyons, Oregon, and they make the mass ply that we use in this house that we're doing.
Okay.
And they use every bit of that tree. So when they take the bark off it goes into this big, huge pile in front, and they sell that to landscaping companies.
Nice.
All of the sawdust and all of the scrap wood and the cast off wood, that goes into a biofuel generator that powers 6,000 houses in their community. You know, they even have a new setup now where sometimes the veneers are split, or there's just little pieces, and it's this robot. It's the coolest thing ever. And what it does is it takes these little strips, and it knows that there's it detects that there's a gap, and then it brings up another strip, and then it presses down a little piece of tape, a little piece of fiber tape.
Okay.
And then it moves it forward, and then it brings another piece and puts another piece of tape until it builds a 4x8 blank, and then it stacks that. So, you know, in the past, they wouldn't have been able to do that. That would have all just been waste. So, you know, when it's shaving that off, it cuts out the defect areas, and so there's these little pieces, and then that all has to be combined. Now it's a robot and does it all automated. So they really get a huge yield out of their wood, and then they make the plywood, and that the plywood blanks turn into bigger sheets, and you know and then it gets put into a bigger press, and then we get these big, huge billets. Yeah. So the biggest billet I've seen there was 24 inches thick.
Dang.
And they can make that, I want to say it's like 11 foot wide by 60 foot long.
How do you even transport something like that?
You don't. They make that billet, and then they cut that into columns or beams.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, they've got a big huge gantry crane that could lift that, maybe. Wow. But I mean, that's just it's huge. But you know, that company, along with all the other manufacturers, are very responsible with how they forest, and they try to get as much yield out of the wood as they can. You know, the whole idea behind CLT came because they were wanted to use all this finger jointed lumber in a structural way, and so you know a lot of the lumber that wouldn't normally be able to be used could be used in this. Yeah. So yeah, it's a mass timber and CLT, mass ply. It's all fantastic.
I do. I like the ingenuity. I mean, it makes sense, because the less efficient you are, that's just, you're wasting time, you're wasting money. And the more things that you can make out of this quote unquote waste material. I mean, if you look at like oriented strand board or LSL type material, where they're taking, you know, chips of wood and gluing them together and making sheet goods, or even particle board, like there's no part of the tree that really should go to waste. I mean, every part of it can be used. Yeah. So I like the ingenuity. I think it's great. It's awesome.
So yeah, you know, we started Timber Builder because there's a need. There's not a lot of install companies out there that specialize in this. There's a lot of people that are out there doing it, but it's such a specialized niche, you know, business that, you know, you need to know how to handle the wood, but it's not just an install. So, you know, And I have a lot of friends that are in the steel business, and those guys are so talented. I can't weld or do any of those things. But the steel companies don't necessarily have to do a lot of the things that that a mass timber install company has to do, just because it's a newer, less familiar thing for general contractors. And so we have to be experts at procurement. We have to have all those contacts, and we have to know the engineering firms that specialize in mass timber, because there's a lot of really talented engineers out there that mass timber is still a mystery to them.
Sure.
Or they have enough knowledge that they know they need to get a specialty engineering.
Yeah.
And some of that's just because there's so much innovation that's occurring, and unless you're doing it every day, you might be operating off of tables and information that was good 4 years ago, and that's like a millennia. It might as well be.
Might as well.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, y'all aren't just your typical framer. So walk me through the process a little bit. So like a normal, let's say a stick built house, with 2x4s or 2x6s and plywood, the framer who's on site, he's standing up all the walls, and, he's framing the house according to, the architectural drawings or, the engineer. And he's also installing doors and windows, and maybe, he's doing your roof decking and all that. So is it what are the similarities, I guess, between like a traditional framer and like what y'all do?
Well, we're not framers.
Okay.
I don't have a framer on my crew.
Right.
So I have some carpenters.
Okay.
And I have iron workers.
Yeah.
The carpenters are actually trim carpenters, so they actually can build cabinets, and not that framers can't, but their primary skill is more of a cabinetry trim level of carpentry. And then the iron workers, they specialize in hoisting.
Okay.
So, doing those things, because being able to operate a crane is critical. Being able to understand how loads are carried with a crane and communicate with the crane, that's all critical. So, we kind of have our foot in both worlds. There's a lot of similarities to steel erection. There's a lot of similarities to, carpentry, but rarely do we ever use nails. In fact, that whole build, it's 8,300 square foot. I just double checked the square footage before I came.
The one for Rising?
For Rising.
Okay.
It's 8,300 square foot, and there's not a nail in the house.
Okay.
So, we don't generally use nail guns. I take that back. We use nail guns in specific applications. So when you have two pieces of CLT that come together, you have a spline, and that's nailed together. And, so we'll use nail guns for that.
Okay.
But you can just as easily do that with screws and these amazing straps that Simpson Strong Tie makes.
I guess what I'm getting at, like maybe from like a builder perspective, if somebody were to hire you guys, are y'all just doing like the structural frame, and then would you still need a framer, to come in and install windows and doors and do interior partitions?
Well, that's one of the cool things with our residential builds.
Okay.
So yes and no. In a commercial job, we try and stick strictly to the structural scope. And I say the structural scope because, like we just bid a project today. We're bidding all of the steel and the mass timber. We don't do steel buildings, but we'll do steel if it's, in relationship to mass timber. On that build, actually, we're doing steel and precast and mass timber.
Oh, okay.
So we're hoisting the precast stairs into place. We're doing the steel columns because it's like HSS steel columns.
Okay.
And then on top of that sits the beautiful glue lam beams. And on top of that is a CLT roof or CLT floor deck, and then a roof deck.
So for that project, it just makes more sense for y'all to handle it instead of bringing in another trade.
Yeah, because you're trying to coordinate between two trades, and it's not like one trade does their thing and then the next trade comes in and does their thing in that building, because the way that it's designed. You need to put up a little bit of steel, and then you need to put up a little bit of wood, and then a little bit more steel.
So it's just more efficient for you guys to knock it out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's not a lot of companies that are out there installing both of those things, and we're starting to see more of the hybrid buildings. Whether it's steel and wood or concrete and wood or steel and concrete and wood. Those hybrid buildings, I think, are going to, be seen a lot more. People have a certain level of comfort with, some of those elements. They're not necessarily wanting to do something so crazy and far out there with all wood, but they'll do wood deck. And the nice thing about using a wood deck on a steel building is you can generally eliminate about half of the structural steel.
Yeah,
because the wood deck can span longer than the steel pan. You don't have all the puddle welds, and you can use less concrete. You can use more of a gyp. You can do a gypcrete instead of something more substantial. So there's all sorts of reasons to do hybrid. A lot of, I hate the word value engineering. The other big one is we're working on several projects, value engineering projects that we're bidding in some ad alternatives to get rid of the CMU for the shafts.
Okay, yeah.
So, a typical CMU shaft might take 3 or 4 weeks to install, inspections on every lift. With a CLT shaft, it's 2 days.
Yeah.
You come in, you set it. It's a lot less. It's a lot lighter, which means a lot of times you can use less concrete in the footing for that. And a lot of times it could be designed to have the stairs already installed when we walk away, so you have access to all those floors. So,
do you handle any, like on a residential build?
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all handle any of the waterproofing?
Oh yeah. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. So on the Risinger build. So that's on commercial. Commercial, we primarily stick to the structure. On residential, we grab a lot more scope. So on the Risinger build, we're doing the structure, all of the waterproofing, the windows and doors. We're custom making all the interior doors. So we're doing all the interior paneling. There's no drywall in that build. And then we're installing all of that on the roof as well. And then, in addition to that, what else are we doing? That's about it. Oh, and the siding. Okay. So we're doing the siding too. We're using this amazing product. It's based on the SmartSide platform. Are you familiar with LP SmartSide?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It kind of looks like the fibrous cement hardy board stuff, but this is wood, and that's our thing. Wood is good.
Okay.
Darren will be proud of me. I got that in.
That's good.
But so this siding material, they take the SmartSide. It goes to this company in Wausau, Wisconsin called Wausau Building Supply. I don't know if you've ever used any. They're mostly known for their millwork. So Wausau Building Supply makes amazing millwork. But so this diamond coat siding is what they produce, and it's basically the SmartSide. Depending on which product it is, they add a bunch of their own little features to it, but the biggest feature is they paint it.
Okay.
So it comes pre-painted. It's got a 30-year no-fade warranty, 50-year material warranty, and, for most people, that means that for the rest of your life, you're not going to have to paint your house.
Yeah.
And so that's the siding that we're going to use, and we'll be installing that as well. So we've taken a lot of scope. So a normal residential build that might represent like 5 different trades, and now it's all under one trade.
Right.
And a lot of it we're doing it all in one foul swoop because we're assembling wall panels on site. So it's kind of like on-site, off-site construction. And if you're sitting there watching it, it looks like it's going really slow. But if you take into consideration what it's replacing, then it's actually going lightning fast.
Okay.
Like yesterday, we were building a wall panel, and I timed it. We had 2 huge picture windows, 6x6 picture windows that we were installing on a 16-foot wall panel. And so from start to finish, it took us about 4 hours to put that wall panel together. But let's just take a look at the windows. So we have these 2. Have you ever done a 6x6 picture window? They're really heavy.
Yeah, we've definitely done like that size or larger for sure.
They're really heavy. And so from just the rough opening to completely installed and flashed took us about 20 minutes. And each of those windows by itself, if it was getting installed upright, probably would have taken, close to an hour. When it comes to flashing the rough opening, getting that all done, installing the window, making sure it's all level.
Yeah.
It's real easy to level one of those windows when it's laying flat.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot easier to get to.
Yep. And if everything's cut just so, then we don't even have to do a lot of leveling because it just slides right in. It's a lot harder to do that when it's standing upright and you're framing things board by board.
Yeah.
Everything is measured out and set down and squared and just so when we start cutting our window penetrations and mounting our window bucks. And so, yeah, I mean, that time savings alone was probably, I don't even know what the percentage is, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
So at first glance, it looks like it's going slow, but then you're considering, okay, I'm not having to put up all the rock wool on a, 16-foot tall wall. I'm not having to do the WRB on a 16-foot tall wall. So there's no up and down on a scissor lift. There's no up and down on scaffolding. The rain screen goes in, and that's actually a really cool feature too. We're using LVL for the rain screen. I bet you don't see that very often.
No, not at all.
It's a waste product for Freres.
Oh,
so
really?
it comes from their blanks that don't meet necessarily the spec that would go into a structural panel.
Sure.
But they're still like LVL.
Yeah.
And so they cut all that up, and we were able to get that less than what we get pine for.
That's cool.
So, when you feel this house is very solid, everything is LVL. We don't have any dimensional lumber in the whole build.
That's cool. There's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of coordination with the Rockwool guys, Are y'all installing the exterior insulation? Is there somebody there?
Everything's installed before the panel gets lifted. So,
tilted up, yeah. But you lay it down, right? You install your windows, your exterior, your bucks, your exterior insulation, and all your strapping, I guess. Mm-hmm. Stand that thing up, and you're done.
Yep. Most of the time, I don't necessarily use the word tilt up. Because that's what I would do with post frame houses. We'd build them in place. You put the columns or the posts into the bracket, and you build that wall, and then it just sort of levers up, and it's there. Most of these walls are being built 50 foot away from where it's gonna land. Okay. So whether it's a telehandler or a crane, that whole panel gets lifted up and set into place, and then we plumb it and anchor it down. What's really cool is there's no specialty fasteners. There's no specialty connectors. Everything in this build is something you can go to any big box store or lumber yard and order from Simpson Strong Tie.
That's cool.
So there's nothing crazy expensive. There's some expensive stuff.
Sure.
But there's not anything too crazy. What I really like is, take a look at my house. My house I built with nails. Mm-hmm. And I love nails. There's nothing wrong with nails. But I think one day I counted and there was like 600,000 nails or 700,000 nails in my house. Between all of the siding nails and the sheathing nails and the framing nails and the jumbo nails and all those different nails throughout the house. And, with this, we use structural screws that don't need to be as close together as a nail. You don't need, 3 nails in one place. You just need the one screw. And then, there's the whole premise of deconstructibility. Have you ever heard it? Yeah.
Yep.
So that whole house can be taken apart and put back together and taken apart and put back together again. So I love using screws. It's not as loud. I'm getting older now, so I'm starting to think about my hearing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm hard of hearing if you ask my wife, but
if you ask mine, she'll say the same thing.
I think it's not that bad. But
that's just denial.
Yeah, right. So the screws are a lot more expensive than the nails, but you're using a significantly lower amount. And, you don't see, on a typical job site, you'll see nails all over the place that they're having to pick up. It's hard to miss a 5-inch screw sitting on the ground.
That's true.
So, at the end of every day, we make sure that all the screws are picked up and we organize them because they're still good.
Yeah.
You know, rarely you can have a misfire on a screw, and these aren't the type of screws that strip. So
sure. Well, what if you could briefly maybe walk me through from start to finish? You know, I mean, before y'all even sign the contract on a project, like what's y'all's role? You know, from start to finish, what does that look like?
So, you know, one of the unique things about mass timber is there's so many different points of entry, and that was probably one of the biggest thing that everybody at our parent company had to wrap their heads around. Sometimes you are working with the developer right from the get-go, and you're helping guide them through the process to find an architect and an engineer. And then, you know, you help to, you know, write the specs for what eventually will go get bid to a general contractor, and you're doing the procurement and doing all those things. Sometimes we get brought in by the architect.
Yeah.
Well, so, you know, there's already an engineer engaged, and the design is pretty much there, and we're coming in and we're doing all those steps. Sometimes all of that's done, and we're getting brought in by the general contractor who's bidding for the job.
Right.
You know, and then even then sometimes, you know, there's a larger turnkey company, or not a larger, but a turnkey company, whether it's foreign or domestic, that is going to hire an install crew to do the turnkey to install the turnkey package that they've put together. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that our company enters into a build.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the earlier on, the better we like it.
Sure.
But, you know, there's a project right now, and I can't say what it is yet. Sorry. But the existing installer, there was a conflict, and they weren't able to do the job. And this job starts in June, and it is right now March. So it doesn't seem like it's a short time, but it's a very short time because, you know, we already have jobs.
Sure.
So, you know, and by the time we get through the proposal process and everything, and then, you know, there's planning, and I'll talk about that. But, you know, so sometimes we get brought in, you know, in a last minute type of situation,
yeah,
you know, because of a delay or a conflict, or, you know, who knows what reason. But yeah, so there's a lot of different points of entry, but we do like to be involved early. You know, one of the things we talk about is our approach to mass timber. The earlier that that a company, whether it's a specialty engineer or a turnkey, you know, a turnkey mass timber company like ourselves, or, you know, an architect who has some specializes in mass timber, the earlier that specialized person can get involved in the project and put this team together of people to do procurement and fabrication and design and engineering, the more sense that the whole project makes. Because then you aren't having to go back and redo work and change things. And so, you know, we're a big advocate for early front-loaded planning and collaboration,
right,
rather than later on getting to that stuff. So, you know, there's still a lot of projects out there that they haven't even looked at procurement or what company is going to supply it until after the whole design is done and all of the engineering is done. And then what happens is sometimes the company who wins it has some subtle differences in the material that they make than what was spec'd in the engineering.
Right.
And so then it has to go back, you know, to the engineering, and things need to be reworked. And sometimes that affects some of the design, and then that has to be reworked, and sort of goes back and forth. So the more that we can avoid that, and the earlier on we can get things like, you know, the engineer figured out and the material figured out, and what combination of material, the better.
Do you see any, maybe in the future, do you see any use or benefit of using artificial intelligence in like a mass timber project?
Yeah, I just told you I wrote a children's book with my daughter. ChatGPT. Heck yeah.
Well, send me a copy. I want to read it.
I will. You know, I don't know. I don't want to be that guy that says, "Oh, see, look what he said 3 years ago." There's still a human element that I think is going to be very difficult to replace, especially on the design side. I heavily respect architects and the ingenuity that engineers have. The last time I checked, ChatGPT doesn't know how to swing a hammer.
That's true.
Not yet. Screw in a screw. Not yet. But I think that we're still a ways off from that. That's one of the nice things about the trades is, technology is still quite a ways away from catching up. Now, there's some automated stuff in factories and things. It's just mind blowing what they're doing. I don't think people are quite ready to put their houses together with pre-made boxes. Mm-hmm. Not that there isn't a place for that, and not that modular is not a fantastic way to do things. Yep. But I still think that we aren't quite to that point.
Agreed.
I think we might get there someday. But yeah, I mean, I don't see AI as being necessarily something that's going to do anything but be an assistant. Yeah. It'll check for conflicts in modeling. Mm-hmm. It'll help automate some of the more mundane work in the design process. Like, okay, here's a perimeter. Now I need to use this parametric engine to put in my framing system, or the standard column and beam grid, and you press a button and it lays it out, but then you still have to go in and, well, no, we don't want that beam right there. I mean, that column right there is going to be smack dab in the middle of a meeting room. So we need to take that out and adjust it. Yep. And those are parameters it's very difficult to program in. So, I think that, that's where you're going to maybe see some of it is maybe on the planning side, taking a look at a structure and optimizing the sequencing. But even then, there's so many other variables like site conditions and, there's a tree there, so it might work best to have the crane there, but that's not where the crane can go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that utilizing AI that way is probably going to enhance construction, make it easier. But at the end of the day, it's still
people,
real people.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's ready to trust a crane to hoist a 10,000 pound panel and set it in the right spot and not do something bad.
Well, Trent, what do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? Man, I'm a workaholic. When I'm not working, and it's generally spending, I'm a homebody. I'm not a partier. I don't go out. It's usually spending time with my kids and my wife. And I've got 5 kids, so I've been a dad since '98. I know I'm old. My kids are 26, 24, 19, 15, and 3.
Wow.
So, 4. She's 4. She just turned 4. She just turned 4 March 1st. So, yeah, I enjoy spending time with them, spending time with my dog. Dogs. We have a bunch of dogs. But,
What kind of dogs?
English setters.
Oh, okay.
Those are the ones I claim. We've got a couple of Pomeranians too. But
I wouldn't claim those either.
Yeah,
you're right.
My mom lives with us. Spending time with her.
Yeah.
I'm actually staying with my dad here in Austin, so
that's
spend
convenient.
some time with him. But yeah, I mean, I am sorry to say I'm a binge watcher. I like shows. I'm just finishing up Ted Lasso for the second time. I enjoy watching movies and television. Yep. So does my wife. So
yep, I'm there with you.
That's generally what we spend our time doing. It's cheaper.
Yeah,
it's a lot cheaper than going out.
Well, we don't have 5. We got 2 kids. 5 and 3
daughters, right?
My oldest is the daughter.
Okay,
and then my youngest, my son.
Okay,
but
okay. So you ready for your daughter advice?
Yeah, go for it.
People always make fun of me. I do these podcasts every once in a while. And I give parenting advice. So if you have a daughter,
okay,
and you haven't learned, do you know how to braid hair?
She does not have the type of hair that
everybody has. That's not true. So I used to own a salon.
Okay.
She have short hair?
She has very... So my wife is mixed. She's half black.
Okay.
And my daughter got my wife's hair, and it's very tight coils. You know.
That's fine.
You know.
You can braid it.
I let my wife do her hair. I'm like, I'm not touching that.
No, you need to, and here's why.
Okay.
How old's your daughter?
She's 5.
Okay, she's 5 years old. Well, she's not going to be 5 years old forever. I know this is a shock. Daddy's little girl. At some point in time, she's going to get a little bit older, and hanging out with dad's not going to be as cool. But if you learn how to braid, take your time, learn how to braid, then there will always be a reason to sit down and talk.
That's good advice. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yep. So, and I have braided many a textured haired head.
Yeah.
And I think that you can learn how to do it.
She's very sensitive scalp.
Get a mannequin head.
And to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. They have mannequin heads that have that texture and everything. Mm-hmm. Go to Sally's.
Okay. Yeah. She has I usually wash her hair. Okay. Yep. And then I'll let my wife, style it. But, even washing her hair is that's a chore because trying to scrub it, and like I said, she's very sensitive, and I try to be gentle, and she just screams and cries. I know, man. Lord have mercy.
Take your time, be patient. I promise you that if you go to your wife, you tell her it's important, she'll help you.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, that's my parenting advice.
That's good advice. I appreciate that.
Now, for your son, you need to buy a book.
Okay.
It's called The Dangerous Book for Boys.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Wait, I'm gonna write that down.
Oh, yeah, Dangerous Book for Boys.
Okay.
It's got really cool stuff in there. It's got what is Morse code, how to fold the perfect paper airplane, how to build a pup tent.
Okay. All right.
Little chapters, easy stuff. What are the constellations?
Okay.
Stuff like that. And then there's a follow-up book that's the Double Dangerous Book for Boys. But yeah, that'll be good for your daughter too. She'll love it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, learn how to braid hair, buy the book, spend time with your kids that isn't in front of a screen. Although,
for sure,
we go to the doctor and he's like, you got to watch the screen time. And I'm like, I don't think you've ever been with my daughter at Walmart. She needs that iPad. She needs something to occupy her time. But yeah, little things like that. That's what I do for fun. I spend time with my kids.
I'm right there with you. My wife and I are homebodies ourselves. I mean, what we're doing now, this is the extent of getting out, and socializing, doing this podcast. So yeah, we hang around the house, we spend time, it's cleaning and home projects and whatever else needs to be done, homework with the kids, and spending time with them. Now we're in soccer, so that's exciting, and getting to see her do that. And
everybody else calls it football.
I'm
watching Ted Lasso. I can't help it.
I'm a movie guy. I don't do TV shows that often, but every now and then.
Watch any good movies lately? Give me a good one. I've watched them all.
It's been a while, but the one that sticks in my mind a lot that I recommend is Whiplash.
Okay, yeah.
Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, with Miles Teller.
And was it J.K. Simmons?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That because
no longer. I think he passed, didn't he?
No.
Okay.
He's still around.
Okay.
But that completely changed my world. That was such a well done movie. That was so good.
Well, it's bad when you're starting to watch the whole series for the second time, but B, you get like a deep dive on a Netflix and you're like, oh well, there's nothing else to watch. And then you're like, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
That is something else, and we do that from time to time too. It's an addiction. I love it though. We'll watch movies.
I'm trying to think. The last one I saw was actually it was a Denzel Washington movie. I mean, anything with Denzel Washington.
Equalizer 4? Or...
No, we've seen The Equalizer. It was oh man, I'm blanking on the title right now, but basically he's an investigator. He's investigating some murders, and he's teaming up with another
Denzel Washington being Denzel Washington.
Dude, I'm telling you, anything with Denzel is good. You can't go wrong. But it was a really good one. I'm sad I can't remember the.
We just
name.
watched a movie with Jason Statham, and I can't think of the name of it now, but I'm really bad with that. But,
Crank.
No, yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
No, it's the new one about that he's in. Oh, The Beekeeper.
Oh yeah. Beekeeper.
Beekeeper was
that
really good.
That was good.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those movies that I looked at and I said, hour and 45 minutes. This is Jason Statham movie. It's like supposed to be an hour and 20 minutes,
right?
And we're done, But no, it was a little over the top with the action, but that's okay.
That's
okay
Jason
with that.
Statham.
It's Jason Statham,
It's good.
And he's a beekeeper, so he's taking people out with jars of honey. And
oh wow.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Train his bees to kill people.
No. But yeah, that was a good movie. So yeah, we like movies. The kids like movies.
The Little Things. That's what it was called. The Denzel movie.
Oh yeah.
It's called the Little Things.
Okay,
that was great. It was really good. Or Small Things.
No, but I've seen every Denzel Washington movie.
I think it's called The Small Things.
I'm sure I've seen it.
It was really good. But that was the most recent one I watched. That was good. Well, one last question before we wrap up.
Oh, I know what this one is.
And that's, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing about the industry, what would it be? I mean, it could be positive or negative, but anything that comes to
just more youth and I'm actually lucky. We have two young guys that are training to be carpenters they're technically like helpers, but more people embracing the trades as a career path. I still think that even in the schools that there's this, they're getting better. Texas has certainly gotten better at it, but I think that the telling kids that they're not successful unless they go to college is doing a disservice to just society in general.
Yeah.
And so, seeing younger faces on job sites and seeing younger faces wanting to make this a career and not just a fallback that they're doing until they can make it as a reality TV star.
Yeah.
I guess really that makes me seem like I'm really old. I guess it's more like
don't age yourself.
A YouTube personality or influencer.
That's it. There you go.
Yeah, reality TV isn't really a career path anymore. But I mean, more people getting into the trades. That's probably, if I could snap my fingers, that would be the one thing. I listened to another one of your podcasts that Daniel Glauser did. Fully agree with him. I think that there needs to be more apprenticeship programs in the U.S. And you go over to Europe and these kids, at a very young age, 16, 17 years old, they're already starting apprenticeships and starting to work their way into the trades, and they're very accomplished by the time they're in their 20s. And here it's just not there. Some of the trades it's getting there. I have a friend who owns an HVAC company out in Decatur, Mark Airy, and I remember they had a real young kid that he started working for them when he was in high school, and seeing stuff like that is great, and I wish I could see more of that.
Yeah.
Welding is starting to get more popular.
Mm-hmm.
So I blame YouTube for that. They got all these really cool welding. I can't weld. But just seeing more people get involved in the trades.
Well, I'm totally there with you. I think that would be great to see that. And hopefully we can start making some good efforts to introduce trades to younger kids, and get them, like you said, kind of in that elementary range where they're, I think that's a good time to get in there and introduce that kind of stuff. But I'm there with you. I think that's perfect. So that's a perfect way to end. Trent,
I appreciate your time. I really, I thank you for coming on and spending some time with me.
Yeah,
chatting,
people are going to hear this. They're going to be like, what's wrong with Trent? Why is he so tired? It's at the end of the day.
It's late,
Usually, I'm a little bit more amped up, more wired. So this is kind of cool, just hanging out, chilling.
I appreciate it, yeah. And thank you for the feedback. And Trent, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.